Dr. Maya Williams rolled her wheelchair through the automatic doors of St. Catherine's Hospital, her heart heavy with the weight of another exhausting physical therapy session. The 34-year-old former teacher had been paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 6 months ago, and though her spirit remained unbroken, some days were harder than others. It was 9 p.m. on a Friday evening when she arrived at the emergency room with severe abdominal pain. The waiting room was nearly empty, just a few people scattered across the plastic chairs. "I need help, please," Maya called out to the nurse at the reception desk. The nurse, a middle-aged white woman with sharp features and cold blue eyes, looked up from her computer screen. Her name tag read Patricia Morrison, RN. She glanced at Maya with thinly veiled disdain. "Fill out these forms and wait," Patricia said curtly, sliding a clipboard across the counter without making eye contact. "But I'm in severe pain." "I think it might be my appendix or," I said. "Wait," Patricia interrupted, her voice dripping with impatience. "We have other patients." Maya looked around the nearly empty waiting room but said nothing. She took the clipboard with trembling hands and filled out the paperwork as best she could while waves of pain washed over her. An hour passed. Then 2. Maya watched as other patients who arrived after her were called back. Each time she tried to get Patricia's attention, the nurse either ignored her completely or told her to be patient. By midnight, Maya was doubled over in her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. The pain had become unbearable. "Please," she gasped, wheeling herself to the desk again. "Something is seriously wrong. I need to see a doctor now." Patricia barely looked up from her phone. "You people always think you're dying when you have a little stomach ache. Probably just something you ate. Wait your turn." "You people?" Maya repeated, her voice shaking. "What do you mean by that?" Patricia's lips curled into a cruel smile. "You know exactly what I mean. Now go sit down before I have security remove you." Maya's blood ran cold. She had encountered racism before, subtle and overt, but never like this. Never when her life might actually be in danger. "I want to speak to your supervisor," Maya demanded, finding strength in her anger. "My supervisor went home hours ago." "It's just me tonight in this section," Patricia said with satisfaction. "So unless you want to leave, you'll sit down and shut up." As the night wore on, Maya's condition worsened. She tried calling friends, but it was the middle of the night and no one answered. Her phone battery was dying. The pain became so intense that she could barely stay conscious. At one point, around 3 a.m., she vomited from the pain. Patricia walked past her without offering help, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Clean that up yourself," she muttered. "I'm not your maid." Maya sat in that wheelchair all night, abandoned and suffering, in a place that was supposed to heal her. She watched the sun rise through the hospital windows, her body weak, her spirit tested like never before. At 7 a.m., the shift changed. A young black male nurse named Marcus came on duty and immediately noticed Maya slumped in her wheelchair, pale and barely responsive. Ma'am, can you hear me?" He rushed over. "How long have you been here?" 10 hours, Maya whispered. "Please, help me." Marcus's face darkened with anger and concern. He immediately called for a doctor and within minutes, Maya was rushed to an examination room. Dr. Singh, the attending physician, took one look at her and ordered immediate tests. "Her appendix has ruptured," Dr. Singh announced grimly an hour later. "She's septic. If she had waited much longer, she could have died." "Who was the triage nurse?" "Patricia Morrison," Marcus said, his jaw clenched. "She was on duty all night. Maya underwent emergency surgery that afternoon. She spent 3 days in the ICU fighting for her life, the infection having spread through her bloodstream. Her sister, Jasmine, flew in from Atlanta and didn't leave her side. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what happened to you, Jasmine promised, holding Maya's hand. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. As Maya recovered, she learned that Marcus had filed a formal complaint about Patricia's conduct. But Maya knew a simple complaint wouldn't be enough. She had nearly died because of that woman's racism and cruelty. 2 weeks later, Maya was released from the hospital. She had lost 20 pounds and her recovery would take months, but she was alive. More importantly, she was angry, the kind of righteous anger that fuels change. She contacted a civil rights lawyer named David Chen, who specialized in medical discrimination cases. "Do you have any proof?" David asked during their first meeting. "The hospital has security cameras," Maya said. "They'll show me sitting in that waiting room for 10 hours while she ignored me. They'll show other patients being seen before me. And Marcus, the nurse who helped me, he'll testify." David smiled. "Then we have a case." The lawsuit Maya filed against St. Catherine's Hospital and Patricia Morrison made headlines. Local news picked up the story, then national outlets. The hospital initially tried to deny everything, claiming Maya had exaggerated her wait time, but Maya had kept her paperwork. She had timestamps. And when the security footage was subpoenaed, it showed everything: her repeated attempts to get help, Patricia's dismissive behavior, other patients being called ahead of her, even the moment when Patricia walked past Maya after she had vomited. The footage was damning. Public outcry was swift and fierce. People protested outside St. Catherine's Hospital. Medical professionals across the country condemned Patricia's actions. The hashtag Justice for Maya trended on social media. The hospital board called an emergency meeting. Patricia Morrison was fired immediately and her nursing license was revoked by the state board. The hospital issued a public apology and announced mandatory bias training for all staff, but Maya wasn't done. She used her platform to speak at medical conferences, universities, and community centers. She shared her story not for sympathy, but to shine a light on a problem that affected countless Black patients every day. "I'm a middle-class woman with a master's degree," she told a packed auditorium at a healthcare symposium. "I had insurance and I was articulate. If this could happen to me, imagine what happens to those who don't have my resources. Imagine those who die because no one believes their pain. Imagine those who suffer in silence." Her words resonated. Studies were cited showing that Black patients were consistently undertreated for pain, that their symptoms were often dismissed, that they faced longer wait times and worse outcomes. Maya's case became a catalyst for examining systemic racism in healthcare. Dr. Singh, the doctor who had treated her, became an advocate too. "In all my years of medicine, I've never seen such clear-cut negligence. This wasn't just bad nursing, it was hatred that almost cost someone their life." 6 months after that terrible night, Maya received a settlement from the hospital, a substantial sum that would cover her ongoing medical expenses and then some. But more importantly, St. Catherine's Hospital implemented sweeping changes: a patient advocate system, transparent triage protocols, regular bias audits, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Patricia Morrison, meanwhile, faced criminal charges for patient endangerment and willful neglect. She was convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison, becoming one of the first healthcare workers in the state to face jail time for racially motivated patient neglect. The day of Patricia's sentencing, Maya attended the hearing. When given the chance to speak, she wheeled herself to the front of the courtroom. "I forgive you," Maya said, looking directly at Patricia, who sat with her head down. "Not because what you did was okay, it wasn't. Not because you deserve it, you don't. But because carrying hatred only hurts me. However, forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. You need to face what you've done. You need to understand that your racism almost murdered me." Patricia finally looked up, tears streaming down her face, but said nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around Maya. "How does it feel to get justice?" one asked. Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. "This isn't just about me getting justice. This is about the countless Black women whose pain isn't believed, who die in childbirth at 3 times the rate of white women, who are told they're exaggerating when they're actually dying. Real justice would be a healthcare system where my story is impossible. We're not there yet, but we're fighting to get there." A year later, Maya published a book called The Night They Left Me, which became a bestseller. She used the proceeds to start a nonprofit called Believed, which provided legal assistance to patients who experienced discrimination in healthcare settings. She also returned to teaching, conducting workshops for medical students about implicit bias and the importance of believing patients. Her wheelchair became a symbol not of disability, but of resilience and strength. "That night almost destroyed me," she often said. "But I decided it would define me in a different way. Patricia Morrison tried to make me invisible, to dismiss me as unworthy of care. Instead, she gave me a platform I never wanted but now use every single day to make sure no one else has to fight alone." On the 2nd anniversary of that terrible night, St. Catherine's Hospital unveiled a new policy named in Maya's honor, the Maya Williams Patient Dignity Protocol, which mandated strict guidelines for emergency room care and created a rapid response system for patients who felt they were being discriminated against. Maya attended the ceremony, surrounded by her family, David Chin, her lawyer, Marcus, the nurse who saved her life, and Dr. Singh. As they unveiled a plaque commemorating the new protocol, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years: hope. "Change is slow," she said in her speech that day. "But it's happening. Every hospital that implements fair policies, every nurse who undergoes bias training, every doctor who truly listens to their Black patients, that's progress. That's what we fight for." In the audience, dozens of people who had reached out to her nonprofit with their own stories of medical discrimination stood and applauded. They had found their voice through her courage. As Maya wheeled out of the hospital that day, the same hospital that had nearly killed her, she passed by the emergency room entrance. A young Black woman in scrubs held the door open for her. "You're Dr. Williams, right?" The activist, the woman asked shyly. "Just Maya," she replied with a smile. "I'm starting my first shift as an ER nurse today," the woman said. Your story is why I chose this hospital. I want to make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Then you're exactly where you need to be. As she rolled into the sunshine, Maya thought about that night, the pain, the fear, the abandonment. She thought about Patricia Morrison and how one person's hatred had tried to break her. But mostly, she thought about how she had refused to be broken, she had fought back. Not just for herself, but for every black woman who would walk or wheel through those hospital doors after her. And she would keep fighting until the very system that failed her was transformed, because that's what warriors do. They don't just survive. They change the world.